Now to President Obama in full campaign mode. U.S. Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina is the Democratic whip. Congressman Clyburn, thank you for watching. Here's President Obama last night in Madison, Wisconsin.
I know times are tough right now. I know times are tough. I know a lot of folks are anxious about the future. And I know that, during the campaign, especially after we had already started winning, the feeling was, well, this is just exciting. You got those, nice hope posters, and then there was the inauguration, and, Beyonce singing, and Bono, and I know sometimes it feels a long way from the hope and excitement that we felt on Election Day or the day of the inauguration. But I've got to say, we always knew this was going to take time. We always knew this was going to be hard.
Congressman Clyburn, that is Barack Obama, the President of the United States, back in campaign mode. Can he lift the spirits of the party?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've been out there every weekend for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I can tell you, I was in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, on this past Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and people are upbeat. They now see us all on the same page. So the president being out there, the vice president raising his voice, all that is good stuff for Democrats.
You know what I can't understand, Congressman? I got a lot of respect for you as a politician as well as a civil rights leader, and I don't understand how this president goes in when we're facing a Great Depression. He turns things around. He gets us 70% back to where we were with GDP. He delivers on health care, the first Democrat to do that since they started promising it with Harry Truman. He's going after Wall Street and put them under some kind of oversight for once. And people who are progressives or liberals aren't clapping.
Well, that's been some concern of mine as well. And I've been making it very clear to all the people that I talk to out there. We've got to understand that I've equated it to those days when we were passing civil rights legislation. In 1964, that bill was in jeopardy because voting was in it. President Lyndon Johnson took voting out. We passed it in 64, came back a year later and got voting in 65. 3 years later, we got fair housing in 68. 4 years after that, in 1972, we applied the 64 law to the public sector. So I tell people there was 4 distinctly different bills done over 8 years. That's what's going on here. We are doing what needs to be done. We just can't do it all in the first 2 years or 18 months of the administration. So I think that we're on the road to a great recovery, and I would hope that everybody would stay engaged.
Well, let's take a look at the president last night. Again, at his big rally of 26,000 people at Madison. Here's the president. Let's listen.
We are being tested here. The question is, are we going to have the courage to keep moving forward? Even in the face of difficulty, even in the face of uncertainty. This election is not about what we've done, it's about the work we have left to do. It's about what you want this country to look like over the next 2 years. It's about your future. So Madison, get out there and shape it. Get out there and fight for it.
Congressman Clyburn,
Yes,
it's a fact of life that positive reasons don't always get people to vote. You need some negative reasons. Do you really believe, as you said the other day, that if the Republicans get control of the Congress and the subpoena power, they're going to use it to go after the president's birth records? They're going to try to prove he's a foreigner and other nonsense like that?
I absolutely believe that. I take them at their word. I watch their actions. You know what I always say, having grown up in a parsonage, it's not their words, it's their deeds. And let's look at the members of that committee that's been talking about the Government Oversight Committee. You got Dan Burton sitting there. He is a co-sponsor of the birther bill. The ranking member, though he says that I didn't mean the birther stuff, I meant to look at fraud cases. Well, that's what they're saying. They're trying to delegitimize this president. They're calling him a fraud. So he'll be going after these subpoenas with that in mind. He may not call it a birther, but that's exactly what they're going to be doing. And the fact of the matter is, these people feel that they put the Republicans where they are, and they will be coming asking for their pound of flesh, and we'll be sitting there responding to subpoenas if they were to get the power to do so. I don't expect that they will. I feel good about where we are. I've been out there, and I really feel that we are going to maintain the majority in both the House and the Senate, and the president won't have to worry about that at all.
Okay, thank you very much, U.S. Congressman James Clyburn, a ranking member of the number 3 man in the U.S. House of Representatives from South Carolina. Let's turn now to Daily Beast contributor Mark McKinnon, who's a former campaign manager for President George W. Bush and for presidential candidate John McCain. You know, Mark, it's great to have you on, and I have to tell you, let's take a look at some of the wackier stuff that's been said by the Tea Party candidates who've gotten nominations for the Senate and other major offices. Let's take a list at those.
You know what? Evolution is a myth, and even Darwin himself.
Evolution is a myth?
You know what?
Have you ever looked at a monkey?
Well, then why aren't monkeys still evolving into humans?
It takes Darwin a long time.
This Congress keeps going the way it is. People are really looking toward those Second Amendment remedies. They're saying, my goodness, what can we do to turn this country around? And I'll tell you, the first thing we need to do is take Harry Reid out.
I like the Civil Rights Act in the sense that it ended discrimination in all public domains, and I'm all in favor of that.
But?
You had to ask me the but. I don't like the idea of telling private business owners. I abhor racism. I think it's a bad business decision to ever exclude anybody from your restaurant. But at the same time, I do believe in private ownership.
You know, Mark McKinnon, it sounds like we're listening to the Cro-Magnon political party sometimes. They don't believe in evolution. They believe guns should be used against congressmen and congresswomen if you don't like the way they voted. And we should reconsider the best thing Congress has done in 100 years, civil rights. So what do you make of your political party and the candidates that the Tea Partiers have shoved forward?
Well, I think it's problematic in the sense that we're sending, a very narrow message to folks out in middle America who see a much different kind of future, not only for the Republican Party, but for America in general. And I'm concerned about what's going to happen when we need to govern. I believe we are going to take the House, and it's going to be interesting to see where we go on policy, because, I mean, those are some fairly extreme examples, but it is clear that folks from the Tea Party, for example, are opposed to free trade, which is I've always believed is a strong Republican tenet. It's one that attracted me to the Republican Party. So those are big issues over which we'll have a lot of debate. Yeah. There'll be a real struggle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party going forward after the election.
But if anybody in the country votes for anybody for the Republican victory this fall, no matter who they are, no matter how sane they are, they'll be voting to put these people, should they get elected, in serious committee positions. They will get authority and power because they're with the Republican majority. People like Christine O'Donnell, should she win, or Sharon Angle, who wants to give guns to people so they can kill congresspeople. I mean, incredible statements like that. A congressman, a Senate candidate who wants to repeal this Civil Rights Act. These positions, these people will be, as you say, in office. They will have the power to use their legislative office to do these kinds of things. Would you vote for any of these people, Mark?
No, I wouldn't, and I won't. And I think if their voices dominate the caucus, then it's a real long-term problem for the Republican Party. I think it's short-term strategy for short-term gain with long-term implications for the direction of the party. And I think it's drowning out voices of millions of other progressive centrist Republicans like me and millions of others. And I think that they've got purity tests, and they want to make the tents narrower. And they call people like me rhinos. I don't see people in the Democratic Party calling people dinos. They welcome people like Heath Shuler. So I'm concerned about the direction. But I think that there's millions of Americans out there who are looking for a voice in middle America that represents centrists. And I think that that's an unrepresented silent majority in America today.
You know, Mark, when you're with a lot of these mainstream Republicans, I won't give away their names because it's usually in a back room, in a green room setting, or on the way to speak somewhere. You hear them giggle at these people. They think they're not just dangerous, but funny, absurd characters. And then they get out on the stage and they endorse them. isn't there a point at which any political party gets in trouble when it's afraid to say what it really thinks of its more zany members?
I absolutely agree with that. We've got to be candid, we've got to be honest, and we've got to say the obvious, and that's why I was glad to see Karl Rove stand up and say what was on everybody's mind about our nominee in Delaware. I mean, he spoke the truth, and he got hammered by a lot of folks for saying the obvious truth, but I think we need more candor, more honesty, and need to be straightforward about these issues and not just embrace people just because they get the Republican nomination.
Back in 1965 and 66, I remember the Republican Party had different groups like the Republican Alliance that brought together mainstream Republicans like Hugh Scott and governors across the country like Romney Sr., and they sort of took back the Republican Party from the Goldwater wing. Will we see something like that? Will you lead something like that in your party today, the Republican Party, including its Rhino wing?
Yeah, listen, there's lots of things going on out there. There's the Main Street group that Tom Davis started. There's lots more of those things happening. I've been traveling around the country, and like I said, there's millions of Americans that I hear that want a voice to represent people in the middle, because nobody's being rewarded for centrist behavior. They're just the hyper-partisans that are running the show. I'm looking at an organization called No Labels, nolabels.org, and on Facebook at No Labels, that's going to launch in December. That's going to have a lot to say about this, and I think will be that kind of voice representing centrists out there. But it's not just No Labels. There's lots of other groups, and I think that's the big untold story right now that the media will see after these elections, that the Tea Party is just it's a small minority, but a vocal one. But there are millions and millions of America, more than a majority easily, that consider themselves centrists. They're out there in the middle of America who don't feel like they're represented in Congress or by the media, and I think that we're going to see a real independent movement out there for centrist Republicans, centrist Democrats across the board.
Well, we're watching for you. Mark McKinnon, thank you for joining us.